Hey everybody, how's it going? If you're after an old school death metal sound, the Tampa sound, the Florida sound, this is my attempt at it. I've written a whole EP like that under the name Habitual Slaughter. The EP's name is Feast for the Beast, and this is the third track off it called Unspeakable Demise. I'll get into all the mixing stuff in a second, but for now I'm just going to show you a quick clip. So there it is. As you can hear, it's a very early 90s sound. Think Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, Death. And I'll just jump into what I've been using for the mix. First off, I usually start with the drums. I've got Yucatone drums, and this is the old school death metal kit, or the OSDM kit. And it is pitch perfect. It's an amazing representation of that old school death metal sound. Yucatone, I've nailed it. Just go to the old school death metal kits. They've got a bunch of different presets. They've even got something a bit more modern. But the Tampa default, I loaded that up and I've tweaked it ever so slightly. All I've done to this kit, the only alteration is what I've done to the snare. I haven't touched anything except for I've gone to the effects tab and I've raised the effects send, which is a reverb basically, to 26%, and I've added a little bit of compression. And that's it. Load up the Tampa default and you're pretty much there to get this sound. And on the drums, I always use a little bit of parallel compression. This is just giving me a tiny little bit more punch. So you just listen to the drums on their own. As you can hear, it's a very natural sounding kit, and I wanted to keep it that way. It does have a humanize feature inside the plugin, and I put that to about 50%. And that does a lot of the work for you. So you don't really need to alter velocities and things like that inside your MIDI editing. I mean, I do that. If I look at the humanizing function on Reaper, I've got it set to 5% on the timing and on the velocity, just to make it sound a little bit more human. But if you do want more old school sounding drums, there's tons of packs that they've got. Yucatone drums have got a lot of different genres covered. You know, anything from like 70s rock all the way to like blazing, you know, modern grindcore death metal. They've got loads of cool stuff. And Ron's a dude, so cheers, Ron. All right, onto the vocals, which I haven't really done much on. You know, I'm not some sort of trained singer or trained vocalist. I've only just really been getting into it in the past few years, to be quite honest. And this is, you know, my attempt at death metal vocal. And I think I've done an all right job. But what I do usually is I've got this vocal master, and it's using the folder feature on Reaper. So, and all these tracks are going through this, like a bus, basically, but not exactly the same. So on this, it's changed a fair bit since the last time I covered this. The EQ is pretty much the same. On this, I've got it high passed fairly severely to about 400 odd, because you just don't need anything really below about 300, 400. You know, the vocals had a bit, like, plenty of weight to them without needing any of the low end. And I've got, the way I do vocals is I have the mic like right in my face. So it gets a very aggressive sound, which isn't great for proximity effect, I'll admit, but it gives you a very aggressive sound, which I quite enjoy. And I go handheld. I use a Sennheiser E935 mic. It's a very detailed, very nice sounding mic, and I highly recommend it for metal vocal. It cuts through any mix really well. So yeah, nothing really particularly fancy going on. I've got a little dip at 1K, get rid of the quacky duck sound out the voice, and a very sort of gentle shelf from about 2.5K. Compression, heavy compression on the vocals. I'm reducing, anything up to about 15 dB, probably more, just to get the vocal slammed so you can get it louder in the mix. Then I've got Audio Assault Head Crusher. I've covered all this before. This is just a really great distortion plugin. And with the drive up here like that, it just gives you a really nice presence to your vocals, and it cuts through the mix so well. And this is a big change. I wanted that sort of studio sounding reverb that they had on some of the vocals back then. They'd have reverb on a vocal and it would be really obvious. And I wanted that sound, I don't want it to be really dry and close and intimate. I wanted it to have more depth, to make it sound more old school, more early 90s. So, right, I've got the Oral Verb by Audio Assault, but it's a super simple reverb plugin. Just, load one up and it sounds pretty good out the box. I just tweaked the output and I made the tone a bit brighter. That's it. And the De-Esser. This is one thing I really struggle with, is de-essing my vocals. Because I'm so close on the mic, I always have a problem with sibilance. So I'm de-essing a fair bit, up to about, between sort of 6 and 10 dBs worth of essing. And it's just something I can't quite get right. I am thinking of trying some other de-esser plugins or some multiband plugins just to really try and get it sounding the way I want. I mean, this sounds pretty good, but it's not perfect. I'll just let you hear the vocals on their own.
Shame all my work, drinking the blood out into the guts. You are such a glorious picture of death and violence. Taking my nut to your skull, ripping the top of your mouth, picking my hair into your body. My work is nearly complete. I can have all of this, all the pain I inflict. Silences, I goes on, what I done, my masterpiece. Your unspeakable demise, killing for a school. Oh, I'm a freak. I'm a freak.
As you can hear there, guys, the way I do vocals, it's not just, I don't do, one whole verse. I do things piece by piece. Sometimes I'll do a whole passage, I'll do the whole line. Sometimes I'll do a whole passage, I'll do a whole verse and a whole chorus, and then stop and listen to it. But usually I'm doing it piece by piece, basically line by line, because I want everything to be as energetic and as aggressive as I want it to be. And that's the way a lot of vocalists do it. And I just wanted to cut through the mix and just be as aggressive as possible. And if you listen to this line,
take a bite out your skull, rip the top of your mouth, pick a bite up to your body.
And this line here,
my work is nearly complete.
And some lines I want to double them up just to give the lines more impact. So I'll double up a vocal like this if it's going into another section, just to get things as intense as I can. Things like that. Little production, little tricks and stuff. But that's my vocal chain. I'll track and then I'll just feel it out as I go, really. I'll have the lyrics written and I'll do it. And then I'll think, oh, now I want to double up this line. Basically just to give it more impact. And yeah, I'll just sort of slam through the song and see how it goes. And I do edit my vocals, I will sort of move things back and forward if I need to, just to get them pocketed in the right spot. So for some takes, like right here,
I'm a freak, freak of nature, I'm a freak of nature.
Like these two here, if we just listen. Because there's two there, and they're layered up, maybe this one was out of time and I moved it back, or, this one was too late or it was too early, so I moved it back. Don't be afraid to edit things to make it sound better. I don't use things like auto-tune. I don't know why you would on Extreme Vocal, but, don't be afraid to make things sound better. It's for the good of the song, isn't it, really? So that's vocals. Lead guitar, it's, you know, it's nothing you haven't seen before. I'll just go to the lead passage. So here's the solo. So a little thing about guitars, especially lead guitar and lead passages, I will comp them and I'll do punch-ins. You know, I'll do half the solo and I'll think, you know, like maybe the end of it could be better, the beginning of it could be better, and I'll punch in something different. Or, you know, I'll just play for a while and I'll pick the best bits. It really depends. But yeah, I do comp solos. I mean, this is, how many pieces is this? This is like at least half a dozen pieces I've jammed together just to make a cool solo. But yeah, it's all played. I've not quantized anything. But yeah, I do edit solos quite a bit. So what we got? Tyrant Screamer, a classic Tube Screamer plugin. Works really well. Teaser by Vadim Taranov. Now this thing is a really thick mid-range and it growls really well. So when you put it on a lead guitar, it pokes out the mix really well. I mean, I've got this pretty scooped. And it's just got a great presence to it, a great vocal presence to it. Vadim makes amazing stuff. This is Windows only, and I have got a video on this, so check it out. Right, Pulse, what am I using? I'm using my own IR pack. I've got my own IR packs, if you don't know. You can download them from the links below. This is from the Psycho pack. This is number 3, or more dark sounding IR. I usually go for a darker IR for lead guitars. Chorus, this is the Mercurial Chorus. I've been using this forever. It's got a great sort of stereo widening sound to it. If you keep the depth down, the speed down, it just sounds like a stereo widener. I've used this on vocals, lead guitar, clean guitar, all types of things. Sounds fantastic. And this is sort of, the more the mix goes up, the wider it gets. So I'll put it halfway up. Sounds great. EQ, nothing you haven't seen before. High pass to 200. Little dip at 4K. And a low pass to 6K. Then I've got the Analog Rack Delay by Nembrini. Just a really great analog delay. Really great for atmospheric stuff in the background, just to give things a bit more, life, I guess. I usually have delay on leads. I don't usually have a completely dry lead. Okay, moving down to the bass. Nothing you haven't seen before. I've got a whole video on this. I use BUD by De-Esser. It's a completely free bass plugin. EQ, something like this, super scooped. And the compression, only reducing about sort of 2 dB on the bass. I'll just let you hear it by itself. Again, I do have a whole video on mixing bass guitar, and this is pretty much the same. You can see I've got 2 separate bass tracks. This track is doing the main bass tone, you know, which is fairly scooped and not totally dry. It's got some drive on it. And then the second bass track is sort of the opposite EQ, really. I've EQ'd it like I would a guitar. This is Mockafix No Amp. If you don't know about No Amp, it's basically a Sans amp emulation. Windows only, unfortunately, but, you know, use any other guitar amp emulation and you should be fine. So the EQ is just the opposite of what the other bass track is. That's fairly scooped. And this one here is just mids, really. That's that. Compression, it's just a safety net. There's not really much compression happening at all, really. And it just gives you this crazy raunchy bass tone. What I did do on this, because the guitars are quite scooped and they are a bit quieter in the mix than they usually are, I've just taken this down. It's usually around 16. This is at -6 almost always, and this is usually around -16, but I took it back down to -18 just because it was just a little bit too loud in the mix. But it gives me that cool growly sound that I really love. Even in a dense, crazy mix where the drums are going completely insane, and with the lead guitar on top, you can still hear the bass clanking away, which is what I want. And I'm a big fan of Alex Webster. He was always very much featured in Cannibal Corpse. Always had a great bass tone. I can't play as well as him. I wish I could play with fingers, but I can't. But yeah, that kind of like cool, growly, very present bass tone, very quite loud in the mix. I do like that for the old school death metal sound. Right down to rhythm guitars, nothing you haven't seen before. Yeah, Vadim Taranov's Mega Fuzzy MK4, just my absolute favorite rhythm guitar plugin. Now, here are all the settings. You know, there's no tube screamer. It's got low frequency and high frequency gain controls. Just turn the low frequency gain control down all the way and you get a tight tone. Sounds fantastic. And here are all the settings. Mids completely scooped out because this is old school death metal. Let's not mess around. You know, I love that old Cannibal Corpse sound where they had like no mids in the guitar. Super aggressive, crazy sound. Pulse, my own IR again. It's from the Psycho Pack, Psycho X, quite a scooped IR. This Psycho IR pack is made from a Celestion 7080, which is a pretty cool sounding speaker, quite old school sounding speaker. It kind of sounds like a greenback and a T75 blended together. The sound of old thrash and old death metal is very much the T75, so it's a perfect choice for this EP. EQ, nothing you haven't seen before. I passed to 140, getting rid of quite a lot of that low end because this amp is pretty low endy. It's tight, the settings are quite tight, but the overall low end can get a bit much, so high pass to 140. Little dip in the low mids at 300. A dip at 4K, low pass to 8K. And I'm setting to the same, pretty much the same for the other side. So what I do, you know, I just pan the guitars hard left, hard right. And what I've been doing recently is that Andy Sneap trick that everybody does, where you load up a multi-band and you dip the low mids. So where I've got it is it's just at about 220, and it's a fairly sort of wide chunk. And whenever there's a palm mute, whenever the bass frequencies and low mid frequencies bloom up on a palm mute, this will slam those frequencies down. So I'll just find a chuggy section. So yeah, if you listen on the palm mutes on this part and just watch this band here. As you can see, it's just dipping those low mids. So basically, I'm high passing to about 140. So I wanted the band to be around 200 and to be quite wide. For years, I never used this. You know, everything you've seen up until, I don't know, a couple of months ago was all done with a standard EQ. I never used a multiband or any dynamic processing on the guitars. On the rhythm guitars anyway. I thought I'd try it, and I've got to say my mixes are better for it. And I should have been doing it all these years, to be honest. And both these guitars, again, are going through a folder. This is like a bus. And I found, you know, just a bit of a spike at about 4K. It was all building up, so just did a little notch there. And that's about it, guys. That is the mix. I'll just quickly show you the master chain. People ask me about this a lot. I've got a whole video on this. I'll link it below. It goes into all the detail about what this is. This is all tone shaping stuff, EQ, exciter, a multiband for the low end, stereo enhancer, a compressor that I don't actually use. It's just for level boosting. And then some cool clippers, limiters, and then a magic plugin called Mojo. And you know, without the master, it's very quiet and not very punchy. And with the master chain, it's magic. This is a very modern sounding master chain. You know, I will admit, you know, there's a lot of low end and quite a nice, bright, shiny top end. But it's the way I like it. So the mix itself, the style of the music is very old school, but the mastering side of things is quite modern. But overall, I think I've come up with a pretty cool sound and I quite liked it. And you guys have been asking for a breakdown, which I appreciate. I'm glad you guys like the sound. Check out the EP, it's all linked below. I hope this all helps, guys. Cheers. Alright guys, since you've made it this far, I'm gonna plug some of my stuff. This is my side project,
Habitual Slaughter.
and this is the new EP, Feast for the Beast. Links down below if you want to hear some
Brutal old school death metal.
and there are links down there to my other music as well, so go over listen. Thanks for watching guys, I really appreciate it, and subscribe if you want to see more metal related stuff. I'll be back sometime with a video on something else, so until then, ciao.